Hey y'all, Grown Black Folks Talk. This is going to come out on Saturday, July 23rd, so good morning and good afternoon and good evening if you should happen to see it at any other time. Becoming a solution-based individual. This is not the video I intended to make today. That next one will come out this afternoon. I have been thinking about a lot of things that are going on, and there's a lot of things I could react to. I'm not going to because I want to make a certain point here. As Black people, and also if you are, because I realize I have people here of different races as well, if as a Black person in particular, but also this is sort of the way we have been trained to be as Americans who are not already people that possess large amounts of capital. In other words, we don't control the means of production of anything, really. We're consumers. Consumers are trained to react to things. You see an ad for something you want, it produces a reaction. And advertising produces a desire for you to get that based on your pain. I told y'all that I was having a website built, and my book, Black, White, and Red All Over, the marketer, Saj P from Pro Advertising Platform, did a magnificent job of coming up with a marketing plan based on the pain that people feel from racism and the worries about our country owing to what happened on January 6, 2021. There are hearings going on right now about it, as many of you are aware. But in having reviewed the finished project, I realized, okay, that is really what's going on. People are encouraged to buy things based on an emotional reaction to the things that are going on with around them more than they are to think their way through. Because I wrote a thoughtful book, it's still a thoughtful page, but I recognize that this is actually the way of major advertising in the world. This man advertised for Richard Branson. So I've stumbled on some understanding as I have been reviewing this final result. The thing about it is, this is a very dangerous place to be if your statistics say you are the least equipped economically and that your net wealth by 2053 at exactly the same moment that white people in general become a minority in this country compared to all other people of color, about that same time, Black people's net wealth in the United States will be zero. So it is extremely dangerous for us to face the next 30 years, that's 31 years from today, in a reactive mindset. Think about half of the stuff you see online if it's aimed for Black people. And really, like I said, this kind of goes across races because YouTube's trying to sell those ads. If you have content that's monetized, chances are you build a channel a lot faster if you're doing reaction to things than anything else. Thoughtful content does not build as quickly because in order to keep the economy running, the capitalists need the consumers to be responding to their emotions and consume. And the consumers are being consumed in ways that we do not always think about. If you are a failure as a capitalist, low level, there's still a prison to receive you and work you there. Ask anybody that has a Black son or brother in the last 30 years. What I want to do today to keep this hopeful is to help you spring the trap. You must learn how to respond with a solution as opposed to reacting emotionally. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to react emotionally because, first of all, we are human beings. Black men are very fond of copying white men talking about women are logical and women are emotional. Actually, no, we're both human beings. Now, our brains process the world very differently, but I see men and women reacting without engaging their brains, and it's pretty much even on both sides. So let's just let that go for the purposes of this discussion. I'll take the two biggest things that people are concerned about to give you an example. If you believe there's going to be a food shortage and that is going to be a problem for you, a reaction is to be worried. Obviously, we just had a situation where there was not formula. About 1 million mothers were looking for formula for their babies. For whatever reason, those babies cannot drink their mother's milk. So we know this can happen. It can be a supply chain problem, which we've been having since COVID-19. It could be a factory going down, We do have situations where COVID is really popping up again in certain areas. It could be because different laws have changed around truckers. Out here in California, truckers are protesting because they don't like a status change that has happened and how they will be paid. Many of them will be put practically out of business if this happens. So yeah, that's going to affect the food on your shelves. That's scary. Be scared. We're human. And then this is what the solution is. If you believe that this is a problem, then what you do every time you go to the store is you buy extra staples. Now, let me define what a staple is, because some of us have grown up in a time period where whole meals are packaged and just available. Affordable staples. You needed protein, you needed starch, and you need and you need vitamins. So what you want to do is nuts, beans, dried fruits, frozen vegetables. You want to pick up some extra of that because that will give you a healthy diet. It may not be everything you want. The other thing you might get are long store vegetables. Put your onions and potatoes in a paper bag and keep them in a dark place. If you don't have a cellar, put them in the closet. In the cool closet, they'll keep for months. If you're in a hot country and you got a basement, put them there. They'll keep for months if you do that. Be careful with your onions. If you see them turning to black powder, throw them out. Don't try to salvage them if there's too much there. You might be able to cut off certain parts, but the powder is very, very dangerous. It's very poisonous. Put them away if you can get it, because there's still COVID-19 going on. The next round of things would be blueberries, blackberries. You can get those dried, and if you can get fresh lemons, if you know somebody with a lemon tree, be friendly. And ginger, which also is a root vegetable. It'll keep with the onions and the potatoes in the bag in the closet. Cheap anti-inflammatories, powdered garlic, powdered onions. That's on the shelf. That'll help you season anything you have. If you have to eat beans every day for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks or months, you will never be bored if you can have your spice cabinet together. Okay? This is a solution-based issue. Okay, so if you think there's a food shortage, you don't need to be watching the news and worried about what happened halfway across the country. Okay, that's one thing. Here's another one. I actually do three. BA5, which is COVID-19's latest and greatest manifestation from what we hear. By this time, you already know whether you're going to be vaccinated or unvaccinated. We're not going to even argue that. You have a right to both. What I would suggest you do, and it also still goes back to the food that you eat: lemons, limes, garlic, ginger, vitamin C, D, and zinc. And, put up a couple of, if you can't find anything else, find Flintstone chewable vitamins for children, because most adults are not thinking about that. Just pick up an extra one. Now, Flintstones don't keep as well as other vitamins, but if there's nothing else, Centrum is great if you can get it. But C, D, zinc, and anti-inflammatory foods. Because if you do catch COVID, the way that COVID kills you is by creating inflammation and therefore scarring and swelling and scarring and a number of things like that. And when blood vessels and lung tissue is inflamed and scarring up, it is not functioning correctly. And this essentially is what kills you with COVID, because it can set up clotting, it can set up pneumonia, blah, 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 blah. So you want to make sure go ahead and order you N95 mask. Amazon has N95 mask made in the United States of America. The brand I use is NIOSH, 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 NIOSH. Now, the way that I got COVID-19 is that probably when I was out on vacation or at a funeral, because when people are at a funeral, people take their mask down and forget to put them back up. So either there was overwhelm there, or when I was on a vacation, someone who was eating near me was sick and didn't know it. In my city, 1 out of 14 people is probably asymptomatic at this point, so they don't know that they have COVID. So, but basically, up to that point with my N95 mask, when I go indoors, I have been fine. So if you don't want to get COVID, those are some things you can do, and then you can prepare for it if you have it by eating anti-inflammatory foods. The notice that neither did I say with the food supply, nor did I say with COVID that you should have anything with major sugars in your diet, the exception being the dried fruits. Sugar sets up inflammation. So don't buy sugar. Don't buy sugar. It's a waste of your money, and it really does hurt you. Trust me on this. It really does. Okay? So there's that part. For those of you who are into dairy, dry milk might be helpful as well. for protein, but I know everybody's not into dairy. So let's review. If you believe they're going to be problems with the food supply, don't sit around worrying about it. Make a staple on go get your staples on every trip. If you're worried about COVID-19 coming to your area, buy your N95 masks. And before there's a panic, buy your N95 mask and make sure you have C, D, and zinc, vitamins that have high amounts of that. You can probably order zinc citrate on Amazon as well. Make sure you have anti-inflammatory foods, ginger, garlic, lemons, and limes. So that you can boil those lemons and limes together. If you don't have lemons and lime, you got grapefruit, depending on where you are in the country, that'll work as well. Probably doesn't taste quite as good to some people, but the main idea is there's a massive source of vitamin C, a massive anti-inflammatory, and that's what's important. Turmeric, if you can't get ginger, but if you get turmeric, make sure you have crushed black pepper because that helps the body absorb it. And you keep those things around so that you can ride out COVID should it come to your house. Okay? Again, we're talking about the problems of the day. People are online arguing about it. Okay, let me take number 3. The recession. Are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? We'll know on July 28th. We'll know what our GDP numbers. But here's what a recession is. If the economy recedes or draws back or gets smaller, we are in a recession. And if the economy is expanding and getting bigger, we are not in a recession. A recession means to draw back. If it recedes a lot and it has a dent in it, a big one, then we begin to get from recession to depression. Those are your characteristics. We will know if we are in a recession officially on July 28th, but I know that for many of us, the recession has been here for a long time. It may not make any difference. I mean, I see people up here emotionally reacting, talking about they're waiting on it, so that I see black men talking about they're waiting on it, hoping that it's really bad, so that black women will be forced to submit. So some people are out here waiting on this, not understanding that if it gets that bad, ain't nobody gonna make it. I'm just saying. But if it is just a recession, the thing that you do during a recession, part A, is if you can't think of do anything else, you're going to have to do what investors call dollar cost averaging to yourself. Dollar cost averaging. So instead of you investing $100 into something, you may do it $5 a week, $20 a week, so forth and so on, a little bit at a time. Okay. If you think there's a recession going on that's coming, what you want to do right now is build your emergency fund. If you cannot do anything else, if you have nothing else going on, even if it's $5 a week, okay, build your emergency fund. If you happen to be one of those people that think the US dollar is really wobbly because of the inflation, okay, there's a couple of other things you need to do. Okay, you need to have more in there than you think you do. If inflation is 8, 9, 10%, and you think you want your emergency fund to have $1,000 in it, guess what? You need 11 or 1,200. So however long it takes you to do it, just start because that emergency may be that big or it may be bigger than that, but at least that's money you don't have to pull out of thin air should something go down. Also understand your emergency fund is your emergency fund. You don't touch that money for anybody else's emergency. This is a really good time as a solution-based person. Please solve your own problems first with the caveat that there are certain things that are actual emergencies for other people that morally require you getting involved if you know about it. But those are actually very small. If someone's life is at stake, okay, I can see that. Other than that, your life is at stake. Please build your emergency fund. Now, if you have a little bit of extra, this is part 2 of the recession. Okay, so look at the things we've talked about. If you're doing a food supply thing, pick up staples. Well, staples cost less than heavily packaged things in general. Staples cost less than meat. Staples cost less than a lot of luxury things that we just enjoy, but we don't need them. So that's where you can get your money. If you're one of those people who has to have your coffee every day when you go to work and all the rest of it, consider, this is not unique to me, but stock up with Larry Jones said $5 a day challenge. Take that $5 and put it in your emergency fund. I'm not saying you have to give up coffee. I'm not saying you have to give up your favorite lunch sandwich wherever it is. But if you have those things in your budget and they are not absolutely required for you to actually live your life. Because if it gets bad enough, you're going to be down to food and shelter anyway. So if you voluntarily look at your budget and crimp it, you will be able to have money to deal with the challenges that may be coming. Now, if you happen to not be in a situation where you're right there on the edge, the other thing that you need to know about a recession is this, and I'll do a separate video about this. A recession is actually when people are made rich because good assets that are usually too high for people to get into suddenly become affordable. Housing is going to become a buyer's market, perhaps for the last time in a very long time, because international investors and corporate investors also see this coming and are already prepared to snatch things up. But that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities for you. Housing is a big market that's going to become a buyer's market. This is not a time that says for you to go buy a house, but if you learn how to buy investment properties, hint, hint, clue, clue, the YouTube channel you might want to look at is called Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets. How to buy investment properties as a beginner and moving your way up. Bigger Pockets here on YouTube, okay? You want to learn how to pick stocks during a recession. Stock Up with Larry Jones. I'll link to these things in the description. You might be done with the entire United States of America. I've talked about Stephanie Perry many times. Well, the price of everything's going down everywhere. So you might also, at this point, use the recession time to study about things. If you're really worried about the US dollar, you might be concerned about buying gold, silver, and maybe Bitcoin. Stock Up with Larry Jones, and the people who work around him will actually cover that pretty well. There are some others, but I'm not going to do that here. A recession can be an opportunity. So now you're not just trying to solve your problems today, but you're working to solve your problems in the future. Because now we have gotten all the way to talking about buying fruits and nuts and beans and fruits and nuts and beans and vegetables to talking about how do you actually learn how to live as a capitalist, not a consumer. Remember where we started, an actual capitalist in a capitalist society. That will solve a lot of the problems that we as Black people are having. See, we've talked about this before, right? A lot of the problems that we have as Black people happen because, here we go. We only live on this earned income. And when that income stops coming in, we're done. And then we have trouble sometimes getting to this one. Uh, that's why it's in red. It's always in danger. Earned income. And of course, we want to move along here. That's business income. Now, I did not say in the middle of a recession that you should attempt to start a business, but I did. I will say to you that if you have some skill that you have that other people are willing to pay you for, and you are either trying to find money to ride out the recession, to pad your living expenses a little bit, or so you have some margins, you can build your emergency fund. This is a possibility. It'll be a micro business, but if you have some talent that people are willing to pay you for, a side hustle is not a bad idea right now, either before the recession or a little bit in it. And then finally, oops, well, I can't get that quite done. My head's in the way. Let me see if I can do it. There we go. And then there's also investing. What I'm basically telling you is invest in yourself. When I say build your emergency fund and keep other people's emergencies out, I'm saying invest in yourself. When I'm saying, do you have some skill and talent that people are willing to pay you a little extra for? I'm saying invest in yourself. But if you have a little extra, a recession is an excellent time to learn how to invest so that you can solve your money problems in the future. Responding, finding solutions as opposed to reacting. A hopeful way of presenting what I often am talking to you about. I said to you earlier in the video that at about the same time that white people become a minority in this country, Black people will be one of the racial groups in this country, but only one, and we will be the one with the net wealth of zero, meaning that unless we somehow make it into the good graces of the country that we have not before, we will have zero capital to work with as a collective. This is not to say that different individuals won't, though, but as a collective, this is where we're going if we keep doing what we're doing. Also, this. Let me turn us back to something more hopeful. You do not have time to be arguing with people. Arguing wastes time that you need to find solutions. If people are likely to ridicule you for buying extra beans, here's how you avoid all that. You don't have to convince anybody of what's coming or what's not coming or engage in arguments about it. If you believe it, go do what you're doing. You do not have time. Living a solution-based lifestyle eventually takes you out of all the arguments that take up time and energy. And this is what I advise to you. You do not have time to be caught in a negative feedback loop with a plurality, I won't say a majority, but a plurality of Black people are engaged in negative feedback. And it can be argued that a significant plurality of Americans in general, politically and religiously, are caught in a negative feedback loop. As a Christian, I have never met so many cowardly Christians in my entire life as I have seen since 2016. That's an entirely different video. I don't have time to get into that now. But I'm just kind of like, if you know the Lord God Almighty, why are you making these political decisions based on being afraid? That doesn't make any sense. Don't you say that he's omnipotent and omniscient? He knows all things. He has all power and is willing to guide you. But then I realize we're human. And it's easy for us to get caught reacting emotionally and turning off this brain God gave us. I realize that. I encourage you, respond instead of react. We all have our feelings about whatever, but learn to look at situations and be like, okay, what's the appropriate response? And if I don't know, can I use YouTube to find out what can be done? What are people doing with this particular problem? Please get in the habit of using these wonderful social media tools that we have for that. I think I've already explained what's at stake for you and your family. All right, I'm trying to keep this. I've been quite grim, and I recognize because we are in perilous times, but I don't want to depress you. I want you to have hope. Go enjoy a solution-based weekend because what I intend to do for a good part of the weekend, my solution for the stress today is turn all these computers off and so forth and get out into the wilds for a while. And I may do a video and I may not. We'll see what happens. I do have one more video actually to do that I intended to do before this one. Y'all have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening.